Okay, so can I welcome everyone here to the open session of the Committee for Social Development Committee this week, and just formally welcome everybody to the meeting this morning. Could I do the usual, asking people to switch off all of their electronic devices and remind members of the protocols in terms of the usage of their electronic tablets and so on. Okay, moving on then to apologies. I have apologies from Sammy Wilson, Dolores Kelly, Stuart Dixon and Mickey Brady. Any other apologies to record? None to record. Okay, thank you. Moving on then to the draft minutes. The draft minutes of the meeting on the 23rd of April. They're at page 5 of members' meeting packs. Members content for the minutes then. Drafted. Okay, thank you. Moving on then next to at the meeting on the 28th of 2015. Of April 2015, we agreed amendments and recommendations for the Department to consider in relation to the Regen Reason Bill. Therefore, the clause-by-clause consideration of the bill that was due to take place has been rescheduled for the 14th of May. Just to remind people, we were in liaison with the Department and the Bills Office, and the Minister is unable to give us any response to the recommendations proposed at the committee meeting on Tuesday. And on that basis, we have up to the 14th of May as the final date to turn around this report out of the committee and consideration with the Bills Office and the Department. It's because of the nature of the fact that the committee proposed amendments and so on, and then there will be some consequential amendments flowing from that. As people are aware from the other day, then obviously it's important then we would hear directly back from the Department as to whether or not the Minister and the Department are willing to take on board any of the amendments or recommendations put forward. I'm sure they will do at least with some of them. But it's kind of pointless saying go through a clause-by-clause exercise today when we don't know the response from the Minister and the Department, because you just have to do this thing all over again on the next available date, which will be the 14th. So we have the formal commitment from the Minister that he will have responded before that date, and the officials will be here on the morning. So we will do the clause by clause on the 14th of May, and that's a turnaround from the committee on that.
As that finishes with the report?
Yeah.
That's the final clause. Yeah. You'll have the report then. If the committee has to agree the final report by the 28th, it's the end of the committee stage. Yeah. So we should have a report firstly ready for you by the 14th, but probably due for agreement on the 21st.
Yeah. So it's in a sense, because once you do the formal clause by clause, then obviously it's really after that, it's really mostly just to turn it around, make sure it's top and tail and technically correct and stuff like that. Okay, members. Okay, so just moving on into the, just to refer members to brief at page 3 of tabled items. And this is in respect of the Assembly Community Connect that's holding a dinner event on Tuesday 19th of May 2015 with the Social Enterprise NI. Now, the Chair and the Deputy Chairs of the Environment Committee, the Committee for Finance Personnel and Social Development Committees have also been invited to attend this networking dinner. And this is a dinner at which you meet the CEOs from various social enterprise NI's membership to discuss issues of mutual concern. I think this is an annual event, is it?
I'm not sure. That's Chair. I think that those three committees, for example, were chosen by by social enterprise groups. So I'm not sure if it's an annual event or not.
It's part of an ongoing series, I suppose, anyhow, of engagement. So, I mean, obviously I'll be attending as the chair of the committee, but I suppose in a delegate matter we can't preempt the results of the election from next week, but there will be an expectation that the Deputy Chair may not be available, because he may not be. But I'm not sure, so at this moment in time we could leave it, or we could invite any other member that want to sort of sit in on that meeting, attend that event. It's only, I think, isn't it? On the 19th at 6 p.m. I mean, we could have members liaise with Kevin or Mr. Stewart here, maybe, just in the meantime.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so I'm just flagging up that there may well be a vacancy at the table. Okay, moving on then to matters arising, there are none. So can we move then into the pension schemes bill, the EQIA consultations, departmental briefing today? Again, then formally welcome Jeremy McCann, Doreen Roy and Gillian McMaster to the table and to the committee this morning, as I welcomed you earlier on there. Briefly briefing is at page 12 of your electronic packs, members. And I just then invite Gary and your colleagues in. Could you just...
Hi, good morning, everybody. So we're back once again for a further pensions bill. And so we shall have, if this is Vice Five in the committee, a very short statement here, which shall be done by Doreen. And after that, we will take any questions which you might have.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for the opportunity to brief you on the proposed pension schemes bill and the associated equality impact assessment. You will recall we previously provided the committee with briefing on the Westminster Bill, now the Pension Schemes Act 2015, so members are hopefully broadly familiar with the proposals. However, we are conscious that we are in the midst of a period of significant change in the field of pensions, so it may be helpful if we provide some background and set the bill in context. At Budget 2014, the Chancellor announced significant changes to how individuals could access their pension savings. The Taxation of Pensions Act 2014 made the necessary substantive changes to tax law to facilitate the increased flexibilities. On the 8th of January, the committee were briefed on the legislative consent motion for provisions of the Pension Schemes Act 2015 relating to the pension flexibilities which were introduced from the 6th of April. The Act ensures that pension law is compatible with those flexibilities. Members were recently heavily involved in scrutinising the Pensions Bill, which is scheduled to complete its passage through the Assembly on the 11th of May, and the measures to introduce a new state pension system. The aim is that people will have a clear understanding of what they can expect by way of state pension as a firm foundation for saving for retirement. Saving for retirement is complemented by the automatic enrolment of workers into a private pension, which is currently being rolled out across the UK. This is a partnership between the employer, the worker and government, all of whom will contribute to the worker's pension. The Pension Schemes Bill marks the next stage in the process, primarily by facilitating different models of private pensions with the aim of providing better outcomes for scheme members than the current defined contribution schemes. Hopefully that sets a bit of context as to how the bill fits into the wider pensions landscape. Turning now to some of the reasons for the proposed changes. As outlined in the written briefing provided to members, the current system of private pensions is dominated by two models: money purchase schemes, commonly referred to as defined contribution schemes, which offer no certainty over the benefit to be paid in retirement, and non-money purchase schemes, commonly referred to as defined benefit schemes, which traditionally offer salary-related pension benefits, providing certainty about what will be paid in retirement. In money purchase schemes, the risk is borne by the scheme member. In non-money purchase schemes, the risk is borne by the employer, who remains liable for scheme funding shortfalls. There has been a steady decline in the number of non-money purchase schemes, and many others have been closed to new members as employers turn away from what they see as an open-ended risk exacerbated by increasing longevity. The bill aims to facilitate different models of private pension schemes which will provide better outcomes for members than the current defined contribution schemes and allow for greater risk sharing between members and scheme providers. The bill therefore contains proposals to establish a new legislative framework for private pensions. If you are content, I will run through the main proposals.
Please.
Part 1, Categories of Pension Scheme. This part of the bill contains provisions to introduce new definitions into the legislative framework for private pensions, establishing 3 mutually exclusive categories of scheme type based on the different types of promise offered to members during the accumulation phase about their pension savings when they come to access them. The categories are defined benefit scheme, a scheme in which the member has a full pensions promise about the rate of the retirement income they will receive for life from a fixed normal pension age. Shared risk scheme, also known as defined ambition. A scheme where there is a promise about some of the retirement benefits, whether income or lump sum. Defined contribution scheme, a scheme where there is no promise about the benefit outcome. In the case of a scheme not fitting exclusively into one of these definitions, regulations must provide for a scheme to be treated as two or more separate schemes, each falling within a category. Regulations may also be made to provide for any other circumstances in which a scheme is to be treated as two or more separate schemes. They may also set out further details about requirements and exceptions in relation to defined benefit schemes. Part 2, collective benefits. This part defines collective benefits that may be provided by pension schemes. Collective benefits are provided on the basis of allowing the scheme's assets to be used in a way that pools risks across the membership. It does not offer a specific pension promise on the level of benefit payable, but there will be a target benefit. The target must be achievable within a specified probability range in order to provide scheme members with some confidence about the indication of what they might expect from the scheme. Examples of collective arrangements which are currently in operation can be found in the Netherlands, Denmark and parts of Canada, where evidence suggests they can, when governed appropriately, provide a greater degree of stability in pension outcomes than individual defined contribution schemes. Part 2 also contains a series of regulation-making powers relating to the governance of schemes providing collective benefits. Requirements may be set out in secondary legislation in relation to scheme reporting, the payment of benefits, benefit targets and valuation. Part 3, general changes to legislation about pension schemes. Part 3 contains a number of changes to existing pensions legislation as a consequence of the new scheme definitions set out in Part 1 and the provisions about collective benefits in Part 2. The aim is to ensure that current legislative requirements relating to governance and administration apply in the appropriate way to the new scheme categories. It contains new powers to make regulations, for example, setting out conditions to be met for a pensions promise to be obtained from a third party, and imposing a duty on managers to act in the best interests of members when making specified decisions in relation to collective benefits or shared risk schemes. It makes provision for the preservation and revaluation of benefits where a person leaves the scheme early. It also exempts collective benefits and pensions of a specified description from indexation requirements. It also enables the Department to issue statutory guidance on the disclosure of information about schemes and includes provision dealing with pension sharing and normal benefit age. Part 4, General. Part 4 contains matters relating to the application of the bill and regulations made under it, including powers to make consequential amendments and to commence provisions by order. It also makes general provision in respect of regulations under the bill. Subject to executive approval, we would anticipate bringing forward an Assembly bill shortly. Turning specifically to the Quality Impact Assessment, we have provided members with a summary of the impacts. We received one response from the Commissioner for Older People for Northern Ireland, and we have provided members with a copy. Our analysis suggests that the creation of a new legislative landscape which offers greater choice over the type of pension schemes which can be offered and allows for greater risk sharing is expected to have a mainly positive impact on each of the Section 75 groups. However, the introduction of collective benefits could, depending on scheme design, have a potentially adverse differential impact on younger workers insofar as there may be a measure of risk transfer from older to younger scheme members. However, where this is the case, we would expect this to reduce over time as they move closer to pension age. Additionally, the bill will contain regulation-making powers to restrict significant amounts of intergenerational risk transfer, for example, by requiring schemes to remain well-funded or to take specified actions to tackle a deficit, etc. The Commissioner for Older People acknowledged that savings to private pensions have been decreasing in recent decades and was supportive of the bill's objectives. recognising the need to encourage greater risk sharing in private pension arrangements. The Commissioner's response highlighted the need for shared risk pension products to be transparent about how risk is split between the provider and the buyer. As outlined earlier, the bill includes provisions to require that certain decisions in shared risk schemes and in respect of collective benefits are made in the best interest of members. It also includes various regulation-making powers to ensure robust governance of schemes and transparency for scheme members. These provisions should be sufficient to alleviate the concerns raised by the Commissioner. In conclusion, Mr Chairman, I think it's fair to say that whilst the aim of the bill is reasonably straightforward, the bill itself is somewhat technical. We will do our best to answer any questions members may have.
Okay, Dorothy, can I just ask a couple of questions? I mean, you referred there a few minutes ago to subject to executive approval, then you'd be bringing forward an assembly bill. Not sure what I missed there. What does that actually mean? Assembly bill on this, or?
Yes, I suppose that's what we are, actually here to speak about the pension schemes bill.
Yeah.
It's, we can't go to the executive until we know the views actually from yourselves here for this EQIA, and it's only once we have those that we can move forward.
I know, and I think that, because I was sort of thinking is there something else coming to
No, I'd say, but just for this pension schemes bill, it's just we can't proceed, it's until you tell us your views here.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks for that.
EQIA.
Thank you for that. There's just a couple of wee queries I had in terms of when you refer to a range of things like collective benefits, benefit targets, ambitions, and so on. How much of that, when you're talking about like guidelines and secondary legislation and so on, what kind of protections are in that? I mean, I understand there are different schemes and there may be more risk involved in some of them. So, but what kind of what's the minimum protections people can guarantee to make sure that they do have an actual pension at the end of it?
Well, it's in terms of a shared risk scheme. Okay, for example. And for it, what you may have is that there may be some elements of it where that each member shall know that they shall get a certain amount, or that a certain pot should be guaranteed to them, but they actually won't know as to what their full amount might be. Okay, so there will be some guarantees inside of it.
Okay.
Inside of the old-fashioned, as it were, kind of schemes for the DB schemes, as they call it, actually they would have a full pensions promise, so actually they would know exactly what they are going to get. The third kind, which is the kind which we really have at the moment, is for a DC scheme, and there actually the member has got no idea as to what they will get at the end of the day. So the whole point about the bill is to see as what we can do to help to have this system of a shared risk scheme, and so where the member has got actually more guarantees than they do under a scheme which is purely as it were, DC, but that the employer isn't going to be saddled with, as it were, having to make up shortfalls.
Okay, Jerry, thanks for that. Jim,
Yeah. Is this bill following legislation already enacted at Westminster?
Yes.
So any change of government unlikely change the template that's been set?
Although I can't say with any certainty, but no, I would not expect it to. And both all of the main parties at Westminster were actually all very supportive of this.
Thank you.
Dolores?
Thanks, Chair. My question isn't around any of the technical nature, but it is an issue in terms of pensions that is raised quite frequently in the constituency office. Many public sector workers in particular don't understand the significance. So I'm just wondering, how is the information going to be distilled into simple messages that people understand their responsibilities and that can address the concerns that they have raised?
Right. Well, actually, this bill itself isn't really going to apply to the public sector.
Okay.
Okay.
Not of itself, but it'll apply right across, or?
Well, actually, as such, for the public sector schemes, have actually got their own act, as you know now. I think your party was quite heavily involved in the bill going through, and so all that is actually set down under separate law. As such, what we're doing here, and for the three, as it were, types of scheme which we're setting up here, won't apply to the public sector. Because they have got their own set of law, which is all there, and which will carry on.
That's fine, so just all private sector, but then how then, or who then is responsible for informing the employees of the implications
Right.
of the legislation?
As part of what we will take on the bill shall be a whole, as we're set of such various powers, okay, for us to make regulations. As part of those regulations, we will actually set out as to who has to do what, as to whose job it is, as what they have to say to the scheme member, as to what they need to know. And so all that should be set out. Say, and so inside sets of regulations which will be coming to yourselves.
Okay.
You know, but that should be some way down the line.
Fair enough, thank you.
Okay, Roy?
Yeah, again, thanks for your presentation. The Older Persons Commissioner had highlighted actually this issue that she was looking for adequate guarantees that individuals will be properly informed about the changes so that they will have knowledge about their situation and how it will affect them in the future. Have you even outlined ideas that you have at present rather than simply wait until the regulation comes along? Can you give us some
Well,
expectations
I mean,
of
certainly
what
at
they're
the time of the bill going through, but we shall be going through this with you in detail. But for example, some of the things which would have to be made clear to members would be the element of risk which they shall face. And in terms of a shared risk scheme, they shall know as to what the target benefit is which they are aiming to get. Okay, and so that and so what they have to say each year, the scheme, as I said, is what it is aiming to actually pay out at the end of the process. Okay, a scheme actuary shall then have to look at that, and we'll have to look at the scheme assets and the scheme funding and the schemes overall, as to how many people's in, to see as well not that it shall be able and to do that. Okay. So all of those things shall all be made clear to the member so that he knows, yes, my scheme is on target to be able to deliver me some degree of certainty. But if you're asking, shall anybody who's a member of a shared risk scheme know exactly what they will get? Well, the answer is no, because that's why it is called a shared risk scheme. Okay, there will be risk elements in itself.
In the past, we would have heard in the news about various company pensions that the company almost rated and was using for its own commercial purposes, and then there was a deficit within the pension scheme. Which are these changes going to prevent that type of thing happening in the future?
Well, actually, even at the moment now, the chances for an employer being able to raid, as you put it, a scheme are actually all now quite small. Really, I mean, this goes back to the 1990s when we had, it's a number of such very major scandals. And since then, the actual scope for the employer to take money out of a fund has been all actually such very tightly controlled. So as we move forward with all this, what we're aiming to achieve is a balance between making sure that we have got schemes which will work for the membership, but also schemes which won't be all very complex to operate, and for the employer might say, well, hold on, I'm not going to be bothered with that, I can't be bothered with all these rules and regulations. So it's always a kind of a fine line here which we are trying to walk.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I mean, there's no other members in the queue to speak, but if I could ask, because we need to go to the core of the purpose of the meeting this morning, which is the committee's response to your briefing on the EQIA consultation. You did refer early on, and you spoke about it in terms of the new legislative framework could introduce some unfairness to younger people.
Well, actually, but it's more. It's in the sense now, but if we're now talking about the system and for a collective benefit, it works on the idea that all of the assets in the scheme are all pooled together. So, and say it's myself and Gillian were as part of that scheme, as I'm slightly older. Okay, and so say when I come to pension age and say the stock market isn't at that point in time actually doing that well, well then, to make sure that I get the pension which they hoped I would get, then what they will do shall be to take money out of the asset pool and to pay me. In terms of Gillian, who has still some years to go, she can't be sure that in a further, whatever it is, 30 years' time, as to what the scheme should look like.
It's 30 plus.
Well, I'm walking very fast now here, I know that, So that's what we mean when we say that there is it's an element of, and as such, but the risk transfer has been moved from me onto Gillian. However, as part of what we will aim to do to make sure that isn't a major factor, is that a scheme has to take into account that it will have to have its funds in overall balance. We would see that it would have to operate inside a certain range. I'm just giving this by way of an example. That the fund should be, say, within about 89% to, say, it's 140% of the amount of money which it actually needs to pay people out, so that it shall allow for the times when this scheme and its various stocks and shares aren't doing that well. But it shall still have to stay within a certain range of funding to make sure that the risk which would be passed on to the likes of Gillian here isn't that huge.
And I'm just trying to find where I read it earlier on there, in terms of, there will be regulations perhaps to make sure that all that happens.
Yes, there will be.
Companies
There will be.
Yeah, so
It's in terms
will be
of
monitored and so on and so forth.
Yes, it will. And part of it shall just be to move forward all of the existing rules which apply about monitoring, but they will all have to fit in and for these new models which we're speaking of. But we already have a fairly comprehensive system out there which we will then, and to use. Again, our aim isn't to bring in, like a whole new sets of hurdles for people to have to jump over. It's just, to aim to make sure that these new models can work, and at the same time to make sure the rights of all their members are being safeguarded as best we can.
So in fairness, just to say to satisfy the committee's view in terms of the EQIA business, Roy raised that himself in terms of just to make sure, if there's people wouldn't be raiding their assets, so I know you've identified in terms of age and maybe some risk, but that'll be very strictly monitored.
No, in terms of all those things, we will be able to make sure that all of the funds are being as safeguarded as we possibly can. The major risk, of course, for all these things is actually the stock market, which can go up and down. However, over time, and again, but the whole point about a pensions product is that it is a very product which should be there for 40, 50, 60, 70 years, so therefore it should have time to be able to cope with troughs and peaks.
To be adjust, yeah.
So you can adjust.
The other category there you referred to, that ethnic minority groups may, some instances, because they have, which actually surprised me a wee bit in terms of some of the working of the EQIA. But you're busy saying there that in terms of racial groups, because people from ethnic minority groups may more likely be in lower pension incomes overall, you're just saying, you're flagging up there's a potential problem in there, but it's not really a problem.
No, it's not really a problem. As such, in terms of the EQIA, as you see, we have actually worked our way through everything, through gender, religion, and followed all of the various categories. All that we were doing was having a look at each of the various categories and saying, well, the outcomes at the moment. However, we aren't able to see anything in this which actually isn't going to help people from an ethnic background either, so it's not as if there's any issue. It's just in terms of what we do, as such, by trying to see as to what this actually means for all the various groupings.
Obviously, the reason why I raised those two, because you have went through all of the categories clearly, and you've kind of no issue in all of them, bar the two, which is age and ethnic minorities.
But again, for the ethnic minorities, I think as to what we're putting here should actually help them as well. It's just as we look at the moment, that their numbers who are in schemes is actually smaller than if you look at the whole of the population, and that's all we're saying.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, any other members indicating to speak? No, or ask any questions? So, on that basis, are members content then that they've taken the briefing from the department on the EQIA and they're content with what they've heard? And so that's all you need then, Jerry, this morning, really?
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's fine. We can move ahead now then on the bills, so we'll see that shortly, hopefully.
Okay, Jerry, thank you, Gillian and Doreen. Thanks very much for coming here this morning and helping us with our deliberations. Thank you very much. Okay, members. Okay, members, happy enough to move on then. Correspondence, just a member happy enough to note the correspondence as per the memo on page 24.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Just there's only one item of correspondence in relation to the committee stage of the Public Service Ombudsperson's Bill, and that's at page 11 of your team. Done that. Well, your correspondence memos on page 24 of the meeting pack, yeah? Just drawing attention to two items. One's correspondence from the minister on page 9. Yeah, that's important. You've got on page 9 of your tabled items there, you have a letter from Mervyn just acknowledging the committee's phase 2 report of the inquiry. Are people happy enough to note that?
Yeah.
Thank you. And again, just to note the item of correspondence in relation to committee stage public service ombudsperson's bill, and that's at page 11 of your table papers.
Noted.
Happy enough to note that?
Right.
Okay, so moving on then to the forward work programme, then that's tabled at page 13 of your tabled items. And as usual, forward and moving.
Chair, can I just raise one issue? That there was an event in one of the rooms on Tuesday, fuel poverty, and it arose from the Mount Erigal group, you know, and the issue around regulation. Yeah, Mount Eagle, sorry.
Mount Erigal, the Herald declared.
I think they're Donegal, Oldale. But the Mount Eagles group, where they were saying there was some good work and good practice done down in Tipperary. Maybe we should invite some of the people up to speak to the committee at some stage in our forward work plan. Whether we do it this side or summer recess or not is another matter, but it is around the issue of regulation of some of the contractors that are providing the home insulation, and the heat imaging that's available through building control at local authorities, and whether or not that should be incorporated, and to say that there are actually providing a holistic solution and one that is lasting.
I think definitely it's something I think we should return to, because I mean, the group from Mount Eagles and residents there have highlighted a problem which affects a number of areas and a number of communities and residents who have bought properties over the years, but basically the cavity wall in particular is dosed, and there's no redress for those people who have purchased those houses. But so we scheduled something in around that. There was a members repenting of that. We do that. Anything else under AOB? Nothing under AOB. Okay, members, thank you. So our next meeting is Thursday the 14th of May, and for those on the hustings, good luck. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.